Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this show. My name is Lambert Mbom. I am a freelance journalist based here in Washington, D.C. And today we are continuing our conversation on COVID and Africa, but specifically looking at a very touching, very exciting, and at the same time, very disturbing issue, immigration. We are going to be following up on lots of questions that people have sent to us. And this afternoon, we are very, very privileged to have with us the indefatigable and one and only Danielle Beach. Before I get to introduce Danielle Beach, let me put this in context. The journey to the United States does not end when one gets a visa to the US. Getting a visa is the first step in a long journey. Then you get a ticket to fly to the US. You fly long hours and arrive at the US. Arriving and successfully passing through customs is yet another lap. You must begin thinking of the next steps. The visa grants you access to the US, but does not give you the latitude to do whatever you want in the US. People talk about the American dream. Everybody dreams to come to the US, and when they come to the US, then a different reality sets in. The greatest part of that American dream is how you settle in the United States. Anybody who comes to the US on any other visa apart from winning the green card or getting citizenship, must be thinking of next steps. Living, working, and doing any other thing in the US depends on your visa type. So some of us came on an F1 visa. After you finish that study, things have to change. You either have to go back home. The US used to give you what is called OPT, optional practical training. Now there are lots of things around that. Those who came on a short stay, B1 or B2, they too have their own issues. Now today, to navigate the complex waters of immigration, given that we have a president, United States president, the current president of the United States, he launched his presidential bid in 2016 by talking about making America great again. And that was the code word for what? Cutting down on immigration. And we have seen that. That has happened a lot. Donald J. Trump has done a lot to change immigration in the United States. Changes that have been challenged in court, some recently with the Supreme Court decisions, and others by his executive orders. And many people are wondering where they are, what they should be doing. I'm going to let Danielle, as I said in the beginning, Danielle is an accomplished attorney. She has over 30 years of immigration law under her belt. She has been doing this for 30 years. And she has dealt with 90 countries, 90. So she has helped people from 90 different countries. And she's not just doing she's not just an attorney going to court. Many people think that she's only doing immigration or asylum. She is also an accomplished writer. She has been writing articles in relation to immigration, and also she is a speaker. She speaks at different conferences, and she told me she had to cancel a few. COVID made her to cancel a few of this. She has experience with every aspect. I would say there's nothing about immigration that Danielle does not know. And I'll let her introduce the other part, because there are many things that could be said of Danielle. If you have gone to immigration court in America, in the US, especially within the DC metro area, you must have heard something about Danielle Beach. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Lambert. It's interesting that you started talking about the American dream, because back in 2016, a journalist who is from a prominent newspaper in France and also in Belgium contacted me and asked me if I would be able to speak about the American dream. And I said, well, I'm an immigration lawyer. I don't usually talk about philosophical topics. And she said, yes, but you speak French. So, and the conversation has to be in French. And I said, well, that's even worse, because my French isn't as good as my English. But anyway, we did this. And at that time, I was rather positive about what would happen, because I never imagined that we would be where we are today. And I think a lot of people don't imagine that we would be where we are today. I'm going to talk about a variety of different things. So I don't know what all of your background are, if you're all Cameroonians or what, but I'm going to talk about how this has affected the administration with the executive orders, has affected travel bans, how it has affected immigration itself, USCIS. So if you have a marriage case or you have some kind of application before the Immigration Service. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about also for people coming over to have to go through an embassy consular process. How is it going to affect them? And lastly, probably the topic that interests you the most, I'm going to talk about the new asylum laws, new regulations, because they're quite draconian. And you are probably going to be a little surprised at some of the stuff I'm going to say. I did a presentation similar to this on my Facebook Live, on my website, Beach-Oswald Immigration Law, yesterday. And I immediately got a number of phone calls saying, whoa, 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 how does that apply to my case? So here we go. So as you know, there's been a lot of travel bans. There's been probably about 7 or 8 that have gone through. They've resulted in different countries being barred. Some have been suspended from the US. About 26 countries have been suspended, and travel has been restricted. That was largely supposedly because of COVID. Then came the economic crash, sort of. And then that became a reason or a raison d'etre for why he could now impose other regulations that would restrict an area that Republicans have typically always favored and supported, which is students, professionals, and people who come here legally on a visa and are wanting to get a green card through a business. So all this now is in turmoil. Now, I just heard yesterday, supposedly he's got a big announcement that he is going to create a pathway to citizenship for DACA. I think he announced this, and who knows what he's going to come up with, because he got so much negative press in all the newspapers, New York Times, Washington Post, MIT, Harvard filed lawsuits against him. All these different people are filing lawsuits against him. And it's an election year. So he's thinking, wait a minute, you know, I'm creating a really negative impression right now, and the economy's bad, and the people are around the world are saying America isn't doing half as well as many other countries on the COVID issue, right? So I'm going to start a little bit with some non-immigrant stuff. So on June 22nd, he said that certain immigrants or non-immigrants pose a risk to the labor market, the US labor market. And so what he did was basically he attacked the student visas. He said, first of all, I'm suspending for 60 days the issuance of all green cards to immigrants who are trying to come here from abroad. So say you're a US citizen, you sponsored your wife, you sponsored your child, and you want your child to come in from Cameroon or Nigeria or somewhere else. That is suspended. The embassies are not working. They haven't had interviews since March 20th. No interviews. So that isn't good news. He said this is not going to apply to people who are already in the country. But he said it is going to suspend DV lottery. You probably know lots of people who come in on DV lottery, right?
Yeah.
Suspended. Okay. And then he said, well, I'm going to make a few exceptions. So medical workers and other essential workers or spouses of minor children of US citizens, military. But this is a huge impact. This is over 1 million people who were granted green cards in 2019 coming across the border. And this affects about half of them who are still abroad. So he says that he's not got a plan to extend that. So we're not too worried about that one because 60 days, okay, it's not huge. It's 2 months. Plus, the embassies are closed anyway. So, not a huge effect, more for show, bravado type thing. Um, so, then let's talk about a little bit about the student visas. Um, so, the student visas, he said, he signed that on June 22nd. And he said basically, these are the categories that are going to be limited. H-1Bs, H-1Bs and H-4s. That's the wives of H-1Bs. H-1Bs are people who have a college degree, come in for a professional work. They're employed by a company, big or small, and they would be prevented. H-2Bs are people who come in to work for the hospitality. So maids, cleaning people, construction people, seasonal workers, people come in to work on farms. That's restricted, stopped. L1As. Now, L1As, if you know anything about immigration, you know that that's like the cream of the crop visa, right? It's the executive person who has lots of people working for them. They're coming to work maybe for Ritz-Carlton or Sony's, and they're coming here as an executive. And also seasonal worker J1s. So not all J1s, but nannies, Ocean City. If you've ever been to Ocean City, people who are waiters there, they're mostly Eastern Europeans, the people who are working in pools, all those people are J1s that are going to be restricted because he's saying that's taking away from the U.S. labor market. So all of those people are suspended entry through the end of December 2020. What does that mean? That means that none of those people, if they don't already have a visa, can come in. So that's a problem, right? Because we're not going to have all these workers. It's a problem for big law firms. My daughter works for a very big law firm in Dallas, Texas, and there's about 600 lawyers there. And she said they're laying off people left and right because most of these people do H-1Bs, Ls, the business visas, right? So they can't wait till December and keep paying your salary and you can't do any work. So that's what's happening. So all these people are going to be banned. So then we talk a little bit about the student visas. Many of you may be on a student visa. Student visas basically means that you're an F1. Like Lambert talked about, you came in as an F1. You went to school. My experience has been that a lot of Cameroonians basically try to file something else pretty quickly after they come in as an F1 because otherwise the tuition's very high, but it's a money making for the schools, universities, because they're probably making at least 30 to 40,000 a year off these F1s. So it's a lot of money. And they said, well, COVID means what? Classes are going to be online. Oh, if classes are online and you have to take your classes online, then you are not going to be eligible for that F1. Step one. Step two, not only are you not going to be eligible for that F1, but you're going to go out of status and we're going to know under CVIS. Therefore, we're going to put you in deportation if you don't leave. That's great PR. Isn't that great PR? It's telling you basically, we took your money, you came here, go back home now because we don't need your labor service. Now, I heard something interesting yesterday and someone was saying, okay, they're proposing an amendment slightly. So what if you only take 3 units out of that 12 units online? Will that still qualify? And there's some talk that may qualify. So what about other people? What do you think effect this has? Okay, immediately Harvard filed a lawsuit. Immediately MIT filed a lawsuit. All these schools, big schools, are making a lot of money off this F1. He's destroying a program that funds and schools are already in difficulty. So this is what the situation is now. So there, I can go into what the lawsuit says, but I think you're probably not that interested in what that is. It's quite technical and complicated, so I'm going to skip that. I want to talk a little bit about immigration itself. How is immigration affected? Okay, so first of all, immigration is affected because since March 15, there have been no interviews anywhere in the world, in the US, I mean. So if you had an interview, it was canceled, it's going to be rescheduled. If you had a court case, it was canceled, it's going to be rescheduled. So USCIS, immigration, the ones who give you benefits such as marriage cases, VAWA cases, U visas, you know, anything relating to any kind of family petition, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, child, usually it's child petitions. Okay, so they are all closed until June 4th. But during this COVID time, people didn't apply as much. They didn't get nearly as many applications as they usually did. In fact, they got less than half the applications they usually get. So they have furloughed 75% of their employees, already have furlough letters. I've talked to several of them. As of August 3rd, they will not be working. That's 75% of the staff nationwide of USCIS. How much work do you think, who do you think are the 25%? Not the people who are doing the interviews, right?
Definitely not.
The directors, the people who are big money makers, right? So not your officers. So that means you may get canceled if you had an interview after August 3rd, because if the money isn't appropriated by Congress before that date, they are not going to have a lot of interviews, if any. So what's the
So
solution?
Danielle, just before you continue, can you explain what furlough means? Because for the sake of the audience, let people understand what it means to furlough staff.
Okay, so some of you may have received already a furlough letters from your employers. It means the employer is saying, look, I can't pay you anymore. I don't have the money. So when I have the money, I'm going to pay you again, whenever that is. So you're not getting paid right now. So that's what that means. So
do they continue coming to work, or do they?
Well, they won't get paid. Therefore, I don't think they'll come to work.
Okay.
So, and it's over 13,000 people. So it's a lot of people. So what's the solution? What, Lambert, you tell me what the solution is. What do you think is the solution when you're bankrupt? What do? You get money from somewhere else. Where are you going to get the money?
I don't know.
Increase fees.
So fees are going to go up.
So fees are going to go up dramatically. I mean, I looked at the fee schedule and I was like shocked. I was like, how are people even going to afford this? It's going up by at least 10% as of October.
Wow.
And that's how they propose to pay back the money to Congress, because Congress doesn't say, okay, I'm giving you money. They say, I'm giving you money as a loan, but you got to pay us back. So that's how it works. So that is huge. I mean, they've already printed out the fee schedule. We've got proposed fee schedules, but I suspect those may even not be what is coming out. They've attacked things that typically had very low fees. They're talking about even charging fees for asylum, which they never did.
Wow. So
it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. So now I think I'd like to talk a little bit about asylum. Okay?
Yeah,
so there's a proposed rule that came out. It's got about 12 bars. Bars mean things that are no longer going to be. So typically now, I'm going to talk at the end about some good news, because there has been some good news as a result of these lawsuits. It's not all bad news, okay? So hang in there. So the good news is that, I mean, the bad news is that if you came across the border, and many of you have had this happen, you came across the border and they said, oh, you couldn't prove you came into the US before July 19, 2019. Therefore, no more asylum for you. You get withholding only if you win. And how many of you maybe have seen that or heard that? You've had it on your credible fear interviews, and it says withholding only. That is a question of proving that you actually entered the US. Well, if you're stuck in Mexico and the border is saying you can't come in and you're stuck there for 5 months, it's kind of hard to prove that you came in before July 19, right?
Yeah.
2019. Well, there's a process. And I just did a case in California on this, where the judge, fortunately, was a really good judge and was very familiar. It was in Calexico, California, near San Diego. He was detained, and it was about a month ago. And the judge said, "What can you prove?" And I knew this was coming up, so I said, "I can prove that he tried to come in." So I had metering proof. I had proof that, he'd made efforts to come in with documentation from the Mexican authorities. Fortunately, the client was pretty smart, so he had actually done some of the legwork, and we talked about it before the hearing. But most of the cases I see now that are on appeal that I get from Texas, none of them are eligible for asylum. So that was a huge thing, because if you're not eligible for asylum and you're only eligible for withholding, let me just review just really quickly what that means. It means, 1, you don't get a green card ever. 2, you don't get a travel document ever. 3, you can't bring your children or your spouse ever. So what do you get? You get a work permit for the rest of your life if your country conditions don't change. Now, if it becomes a Democrat or somebody else takes over, okay, you probably can go back home then, the immigration is going to say. But withholding is, I have taken withholding maybe twice in 30 years, because my experience has been that people don't like it. After they get it, they're so relieved that they can stay. But then like 2 months later, they're like, wait a minute, I'm like a prisoner. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. It's not really that bad, but if you come in illegally, it's really hard to change that withholding. So here's the good piece of news.
Danielle, can you just hang on with that? Let's clarify something. So for those who are seeking asylum, if you applied or came into the country after July 2019, most of the people are being recommended for withholding. They are not being granted.
They're being barred asylum. So they are not eligible for asylum under any circumstances because of the executive order of third country bar. So this becomes very interesting, because lots of lawsuits. And we had a great lawsuit by CARE Coalition for Immigration Refugees, I think it is. Anyway, they filed in DC, and this judge, CARE v. Trump, he rescinded. So now that is not the law anymore, nationwide. So that is good. It's good because it means that people who only got withholding because, now here's the caveat. So if the judge said, I'm only giving you withholding because in my discretion, I think I don't believe you completely. I just don't think you had enough corroboration. I think you had some inconsistencies. Then you're not going to be eligible to reopen. But if the judge said, I'm only giving you withholding because I can't give you asylum because of this third country bar, see me and we can reopen it. Under the new law, you would be eligible for asylum. Now, if there's other issues, hopefully then you appealed. And if you've on appeal, then you can bring it up. But if your appeal period is past, say you filed in April and you got your decision in April and you didn't do anything, you didn't appeal, you may have a much harder time doing anything about that. So that's a good piece of news. So when Trump gets a defeat like that, what does he do? He does the same thing over and over. He comes up with another way to attack that area. So he just issued an executive order last week, and this executive order says that basically I'm going to make 12 major changes to the asylum law. Why is this significant? Because these rules, which impose about a dozen new bars on asylum, and they exclude nearly all people seeking refuge. If these go into effect, which they're scheduled to do in August 25th, if they go into effect, what will happen is U.S. can no longer call itself a country that offers refuge to the persecuted. It's very draconian indeed. So I'm going to talk about a few of the things that what he did. So it used to be he only attacked the southern border, people who came in illegally. Okay, you came in illegally on a visa, fine. You could apply for asylum as long as you did so within 1 year. And, after 150 days, you got a work permit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's changed. How has that changed? Well, for one thing, now he said, okay, instead of having this rule of, the old rule was very generous. I mean, it said 2 years if you came in through other countries and stuff. This rule says if you went through 2 different countries, well, how in the hell do you get to this country without going through 2 different countries, right? I mean, you're stopping off somewhere, okay? So if you went through at least 2 different countries before arriving in the US, or if you stayed in one country for 14 days, which typically tons of my clients do, they go to Nigeria, then they get their visa there to go to Mexico, and that takes usually a month or 2. 14 days, that's what you get under this new law. Then you're barred. Second bar, if you didn't file your taxes. Okay, so not paying taxes from your employer, filing taxes, 2 different things, right? You have to file a 1040 federal. Filing taxes. So you can't just say, okay, well, yes, I paid taxes. My employer paid taxes. Yes, your employer pays taxes. All employers pay taxes. Or if you paid your taxes late, or if you fail to report income to the IRS. So how do you fail to report income to the IRS? Well, that goes back to immigration. So immigration has this lovely new form, which I was fighting to not have it come through, but of course it did come through. There were a lot of lawsuits, but eventually it won. Trump won. And in February 2020, a new public charge rule came out. That public charge rule increased the income to, instead of 100%, 250%, and that's a very positive factor. It also listed many factors, and I'm not going to talk about that in detail today because that was the topic. I was supposed to speak about that at the annual conference in June in San Diego for all immigration lawyers all over the country. So I'm quite knowledgeable about that area, and it's very detailed. And there's a lot of stuff. We could talk for an hour just about that. So there's this new form that comes out that everybody has to fill out now when they go to get a green card. Say you marry someone, you want to get a green card. Say you got asylum, you want to get a green card. Asylum is a bit of an exception, so I won't necessarily go there. But you have to show that you're not subject to the public charge. Well, this form 944 is pages long. I think it's like 20 pages long. And the questions ask things like, did your children ever work and get pocket money for cutting grass and not pay taxes? Did you, do you have a social security? Have you ever declared bankruptcy? Have you ever, it's like minutia that it goes into. So you should not fill out this form by yourself, because if the answer is yes, you're in trouble. And if the answer is no, they're going to know anyway. So you need to see a lawyer to figure out how you're going to get around that. If you are an asylee applying for a green card, you are exempt from the public charge. So that is one good thing. But everybody else, marriage cases, other cases that are applying, vows are also exempt, I believe. are subject to that rule. So it's very important. So the third factor, when we go back to the asylum, is have you ever been unlawfully present in the U.S. for 1 year? So if you've been unlawfully present for 1 year, I mean, who hasn't? You come in you on the visa expires, you're waiting for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years for a court date, or for an immigration interview affirmatively at the asylum office. You're illegal. You have applied for asylum, but you have no legal status. A work permit, yes, but applicant for asylum is not a legal status. So that's almost everybody, right?
Wow.
So these factors, now the judges, includes the judges or the asylum office, that person's unlawful entry. So if you entered unlawfully, based on those three factors I mentioned earlier, that's going to be viewed by the judges as a significant adverse factor. Significant adverse factor. I see a problem with that because it contradicts the law of the Board of Immigration Appeals right now. Because the law says, well, if you were fleeing from your country and you use that as a means, these two cases prove that you were okay to do that and it should not be held against you. But now they're saying the opposite. They're saying, yes, it's a significant adverse factor. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the court, because it seems a direct contradiction to what the law says now. So is that it? No.
So Danielle, let me stop you just for the sake of the audience, and so that we can break that down for the audience. So one, there are two categories. There are people who came in legally. They have been here legally and then went out of status. Now Correct. They have applied. They are applying for maybe whatever asylum those people don't have any problems, do they?
So if they came in legally, yes, they do, because I haven't even touched on what another law, which is the work permits, which everybody cares about. So people who come in legally have to now wait 365 days, not 150. People who come here illegally never are eligible for a work permit based on the category that they were before. Before you filed an asylum, you waited 150 days from the time you filed it, you're eligible for a work permit. If you came here illegally without a visa, not eligible for a work permit.
So all those who are waiting in Mexico currently, how about those who are in jails, immigration jail detention facilities across the country? Does this apply?
Well, that's the question. So if this goes into effect August 25th, the question is whether it'll be retroactive or only effective as of August 25th. So if you haven't been granted asylum yet, I think that's going to apply. If you've been granted asylum, I think it probably won't apply. But imagine, what's happening is NGOs are coming up with all kinds of plans as how are they going to help churches and other people. You know, all these people, how are they going to live if they don't have the ability to work? That means they're totally dependent on family members or friends or churches or NGOs. How are they going to pay their lawyer? And this is where the cleverness comes in. And this is all what I call a Steve Miller conspiracy, you know, who's Trump's big guy on immigration, who seemingly hates immigrants. I don't know why, but anyway. This goes back to the point that if you want to deport people, what do? You make them unable to pay for a lawyer, right? If they can't pay for a lawyer, how are they going to defend themselves? That means they have to go to court by themselves. They have to represent themselves. And that's usually a disaster. There's a few people who do get through that are, you know, smart and know, but a lot of it's luck that they get through. Maybe they had a good judge too, because frankly, it's quite, you know, if you can't hire a lawyer and you don't have, like in criminal law, you have access to a free lawyer. You don't have that. So there's no access to free public defenders or free lawyers or free services. So you're basically stuck, right? Because how are you going to pay? So it's very clever, unfortunately.
So, Danielle, let me just make a comment about that before you get. I hold your thought there, and for the sake of the audience, again, we are with Danielle Beach. Danielle Beach is an immigration attorney here based in Washington D.C. with 30 years of experience. She's talking to us about the changes that are currently being made in the immigration system here in the U.S. through executive orders. But one of the most important things that I have learned this far is the fact that if you have any immigration issue, do not try to go attempt to do it on your own. Get a lawyer. It is expensive to get a lawyer, but you are better.
And get a good lawyer, because there's a lot of not good lawyers there.
Correct.
I see so many cases that I do on appeal, and I'm thinking, how did they lose this case? They clearly never spoke to the person or prepared them, or they prepared them the wrong way. There's no way that person should have lost.
So again, please get a lawyer. I'm going to put Danielle's firm and address and phone number here so that people can follow. If you have an immigration issue under current circumstances, given all that this administration is doing, get a lawyer. And Danielle is specifying not just any kind of lawyer, get a good lawyer. Sorry, I wanted to put that in. You can continue, Danielle.
Okay, so let's talk about what other bars there are, because I've only talked about a few. In this executive order, it was very, very cumulative. So one of the other areas is, Trump's big thing is always attack the southern border. So people who come in from South America, Central America, typically have two types of cases. One, domestic violence, women who have been abused or violated or raped by gangs or other things. This came up about 3 or 4 months ago with Sessions, and Sessions made an executive order that they put in that basically said, no, this case is no good anymore on domestic violence. But then it came back because people argued, said, well, wait a minute, AT's still good, so this says this, so it doesn't really take away all of this. So it became a sort of a hybrid, but they still kept it, right? Now he's saying, no more victims of domestic violence. Okay? So that was what we call in asylum. There's 5 ways to get asylum. One is called a PSG. PSG means particular social group. It's the most complicated way to get asylum. People who are homosexuals, people who are lesbians, people who are victims of domestic violence, people who are coming from countries, this doesn't apply to Cameroon, but like Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Mali, FGM, female genital mutilation. Those are PSGs. Now, when you have a PSG, you have to prove 4 different factors. And I'm not going to go into that because it's a bit technical. But if you don't prove those 4 factors, so it's much more difficult than political opinion, which is what most people do. You have to write a legal memo. It's very specific to the facts. So you have to win that way. Okay, so what else did he take away? Same thing he tried to take away before. It was gang violence.
Danielle, before you get to that, you talked about 5 ways to get asylum. You just named 1. What are the other 4?
Oh, okay. So the other 4 are political opinion, which means that you, and this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to talk about this because I see so many Cameroonians who come across the border or who come to my office and they say, I fled my country because of the Anglophone crisis. I fled because my country's in a civil war and therefore I'm in danger. That is not asylum. Or because Boko Haram is attacking my country. That is not asylum. That's what we call temporary protected status. It does not exist for Cameroon. Other countries have it, not Cameroon. So it's when there's a legitimate civil war in a country, like in Sierra Leone, when they had that crisis, then there's a few countries, and I mean a few, less than 10, I think, right now, which the administration of the president will say those countries should be protected because they are being decimated by either uh, political dictators, or they're being decimated by tribal warfare, problem, or something like that. So that, if you're using that as your asylum claim and you're saying I'm a teacher and I fled because I'm a teacher and teachers aren't employed, and they're giving us a hard time and we can't work and we cannot we're just they're oppressing our job. So job is not one of the 5 grounds. Crisis in your country is not one of the 5 grounds. Has to be political opinion. So I always am amazed when I read a decision or a credible fear and it says, I don't have a political opinion. I am not political. But they thought I was an Anglophone because I'm an Anglophone, but they thought I was part of SCNC. Okay, but you're not. That's a very hard case to win. Because if you're saying, I don't have any political opinion, why are you applying for political asylum? It doesn't make sense. Now, there is such a thing as imputed political opinion, but that's weak and it's hard to win. So you're much better off saying, yes, I was a member, and proving you were, than saying, well, I sort of supported it or I didn't support it. Another one that Cameroonians make a lot of mistakes with, they say, oh, they tried to recruit me. The Anglophone separatists, they harmed me. They were killing me. They were going to hurt me. That's not asylum. Sorry, not asylum. Okay, so that's why you need a lawyer. So figure out what is and what isn't, and what works and what doesn't work. So political opinion is a big one for Cameroon, by the way. Second one is religion. So religion is a big one for many countries, not so much for Cameroon. Back in 92, I think you had some problems with Jehovah's Witnesses and some of those kind of evangelical churches. So I did see asylums back in 92. That tells you how long I've been practicing based on that. But yeah, now that doesn't work. Okay.
Cool.
And but religion works for many people. So for example, I do Coptic Christians, people from Egypt. That's very good basis for asylum. So what other ground?
You talked about PSG, political opinion, religion. So
right.
two more.
National origin, I honestly hardly ever see one of those. And race. And racial discrimination. Race is like, okay, maybe if you had a situation where Moors, like in certain areas were targeted, or blacks were targeted, as opposed to maybe like a South African situation, like apartheid or something, that might be a race or national origin. But it's very rare that you see those. They don't come up very much. And sometimes you can do hybrids. You can mix them and do several, or I did a Venezuelan case and the guy had been a director of a big medical center. And I thought, oh my God, he really doesn't have anything really much. But we were able to, when we found out more and more, you're able to figure out a way to do some stuff. In some countries, you have also doctors, they can get it because maybe they're against organ harvesting. I've done several of those. It's not a Cameroonian thing. You don't really have organ harvesting in Cameroon.
Well, it's happening now in the context of COVID. There is there are 2 or 3 stories that this past week of because of the way bodies are being disposed of, people are now doing some organ harvesting. There's I think 2 or 3 stories that ran this week in Cameroon, and even before then, there was a story about a group of people, young people, who went around and abducted kids, kept them in a big apartment, and part of it was not just about selling the children, but killing them and harvesting their organs. So again, it's something that is developing. And
I've done 1 or 2 cases from Cameroon, but they were very specialized on, and we did win. But it was a very specialized fact pattern. So again, I love fact patterns that are different. I really am bored to death with the cases that say, I got arrested by, because I'm SCNC. I was in a protest, or I got arrested at home. Yeah, I have heard that story like probably 10 million times. So, if it's something different, okay, if you don't have anything different, that's fine. That's why I do a lot of variety of countries, because if I did that same story every day, I would be like, go out of my mind. So, it's nice to vary it, to create some change, and as a practitioner, I mean, a lot of lawyers like that because they can template their stories, and sometimes they use stories from other people, which is really illegal. But I like variety, and every story we create is an individualized story from scratch. It is not a story that's taken from someone else, or I never get on my stories that the judge says, oh, that looks, and they can pull out from the computer if it's similar to another story. Oh, yeah, this person had the same story almost. You just changed some dates and some names. So we're very computer techy here. So be careful about borrowing your brother's or sister's story and just plugging it in. Yeah, cheap, but not good results usually. So gang violence, that's another area. So this
You're
is
talking about the
interesting.
bars?
Pardon me?
The
Yeah,
bar,
the
the recent
bars.
bars,
Yeah.
yeah.
So gang violence doesn't really affect people from Africa, but it certainly affects Latin American countries. Um, and here's a really interesting one. So there's one judge I've seen, which I've gotten probably like 5 appeals from, that I'm doing appeals to the Fifth Circuit, which is the circuit in Texas. He's located in Texas. His name is Larragee. And I've never been in front of him. I would love to go in front of him just because he is so racist. And his ideas are that, if you've been arrested for 20 days, that's not harm. So he's applying the new law, which is extreme harm instead of just 10% probability of harm, which is the current law. Though the judges, none of them apply that either. I mean, they, 10% probability, you try and get that approved, and it's not going to go very far. But now the standard is going to be extreme harm, which means it's a much higher burden. So you say, well, I went to jail, but were you beaten? Yeah, I was beaten. Did you bleed? No, I didn't bleed. Okay, how are you beaten and you don't bleed? First of all, okay, I'm sorry. There's something wrong with someone saying that to start with. But they say bruises. That's a very common Cameroonian expression. I had bruises and then I had massages. Okay, an American judge is not impressed with bruises and massages. Okay, they want to see medical reports. They want to see what actual injuries did you have. So if you had no injuries and you have no scars, that probably isn't going to qualify as extreme harm anymore. They also took away threats. They said death threats don't qualify anymore for torture conventions. So they raised the standard for asylum, they raised the standard for withholding, and they raised the standard for torture convention. So all of those standards have been raised. So that makes it much more difficult for practitioners like us. So let's talk about another. We talked about gender. Let's talk about one other area. So a lot of Cameroonians have traveled a lot. They've gone to other countries. They've maybe lived in Germany. They went as a student there, or maybe they lived in another country, China or some other country, and they couldn't make it there because of the language issue or something. And they went, and that's called firm resettlement. So there's a legal term. So that has always existed in the law, firm resettlement. They've changed the standard for that completely. So it used to be that, you could get around the law if you could prove certain factors. You could show that person hasn't firmly resettled. My biggest win ever on firm resettlement was a case I did of a Cameroonian who had lived in Italy, but he had his kids in Italy, but he had moved around, never had a stable home for 20 years. And I thought, no way, no how. And we won that, but we won it because he had very special circumstances, very special facts again, which, he'd had another lawyer for years who'd never even asked him that question. And I asked him and I was like, wow, you have that? Why didn't you tell anybody? this is great. We can win on this.
Hmm.
So, you know, but usually if you firmly resettled for a year, most judges are going to say, well, you lived in that country for a year. You were safe. You could have applied for asylum and you didn't. That standard is very much going to change. I'm not going to go into the details of how it's going to change because yet we don't quite know yet, because there's going to be case law on this too. So basically the danger of what I see is that with that is going back to the first point I made, is if you've been through 2 countries or you've lived in a country for 14 days, is that going to be considered that you then firmly resettled in that country? Even though you only maybe stayed 15 days because you were trying to get a visa or because you were trying to find money to leave. So that's the problem I see with that area. So one other thing about people across the border. So say you cross the border, you got a credible fear, you went before an immigration judge, and you don't have that third country bar anymore, but you have now this new problems. What happens if you get released on parole, you get out, and then you decide, you meet an American and you decide you want to get married and you want to get a green card? Okay. If you were paroled, that's a possibility. Usually you have to enter legally on a visa. If you entered legally on a visa and you're in deportation, I have lots of people this happens to all the time. They're F1s, they've been waiting 5 years, now they're married, they have a kid. Can I go forward on my marriage case? And I always tell them, of course you can. But don't forget, your asylum case is still part of the case. And they say, but why? I'm getting it on my marriage case. I said, no, that's not how it works. You're getting it on both because you filed for asylum. So that's what put you in deportation. So it's still coming in. They're still going to ask you questions about it. So the problem with that is that now if you come across the border, they're saying, so the old law, this is like 30 years ago, they used to call it exclusion if you came in that way. So that went away. They eliminated that. So now what they're saying is, if you come in, you're eligible only for asylum-only proceedings. That means you can't then marry an American and say, now I want to get a green card based on marriage. You're stuck. You can only do asylum. If you didn't come in legally on a visa and you came in illegally, that's all you can do.
Wow.
So that is a major change. Here's another one you're not going to like either. If you came in illegally across the border, you had a credible fear, you go before the judge. The judge says, he looks at the case before you even have a hearing. He says, there's not sufficient corroboration here. This isn't enough for an asylum claim. He doesn't even have to have a hearing anymore.
What?
Now, I don't see how that one will ever pass constitutionally, because that one to me is the most outrageous, because it means you have entered the U.S. and yet you're not being given the right to have a hearing. If that judge determines that what you filed is insufficient or is not, let me read the exact language. Judges could declare that an applicant hadn't put enough evidence in the application itself and deny a person their day in court.
Wow. So Danielle, that's a lot to chew, but let's just take down, for people who are currently filing, somebody who has crossed the border illegally and they are filing for asylum, what should they be doing?
So if you enter the border illegally and you, I mean, the problem is most people don't know what to do. And it always amazes me because, frankly, if I was leaving my country and I went to a country I didn't know, I'd have a plan, right? I'd have documents. I'd have a story. I'd have something to say. I wouldn't get to the border and just babble whatever comes out of my mouth. And a lot of people do that. They just say, oh, And I'm thinking sometimes I hear these stories and they're so ridiculous. They say things, crazy things like, well, I'm afraid my mom would kill me, or or they're going to have a ritual ceremony and I'm going to be killed. I'm thinking, what? Where is this coming from? Maybe they're delirious, but you want to have an idea of what you're going to say. Especially if you had a brother or sister who won asylum. Why are you coming in here and you don't even know what their story was? Why do you not know what's going on? I mean, be a little bit educated, figure out, or talk to a lawyer maybe before you even come. Say, what should I bring? What do I need? Now the whole passport issue is becoming a problem too, because Cameroonian, everybody knows that anyone who comes across the border, the smugglers are telling them, destroy your passport, because otherwise they might ship you back. So people are destroying their passport before they even get to the border. Okay, now you don't have a passport, so even if you got your credible fear, they're not even giving you parole anymore, especially in Texas, because they're saying you can't really prove who you are. Your Cameroonian ID is just one document. You don't even have your birth certificate. I saw one judge, that same judge I mentioned in Texas, he goes, where are all your originals? You don't have any originals. All you have is copies. I'm not going to consider any of these copies. It's like, people flee their country. They don't come with a whole bag of, document originals, because they could be stopped anywhere and lose that, or it could be stolen or whatever. So I would suggest that the easiest place to win is when you first file asylum at the asylum office or in court. That's the easiest place to win. We won 98% of those cases. It's very, very rare that we lose one of those. Once you get on appeal to the board, your chances go down by about 50%, because the damage is done. You've said some stupid things in court. You've said things that you didn't mean to say, or you weren't prepared for. You got dates wrong. Whatever you did, it's part of the record. I can't change that. So all I can argue is why you said that. So for example, I just have a case right now. I was working on an appeal yesterday, and the guy said at the border, he said, well, I was arrested for 5 months and 2 weeks. But then in the court and on his declaration, he said, I was arrested for 5 days first time and 2 weeks the second time. So, I mean, it's clear to me that somebody didn't interpret what he said at the border correctly, but the attorney never argued that. And so it came out as a huge inconsistency. So of course he got denied. So, consistency, corroboration, those are the two that I'd say the C's. Pay attention to the C's. Corroboration, consistency, those are biggies. Most cases get denied or appealed because of those two things. A lot of immigration lawyers, and this is, again, something that really surprises me, but they don't look at the documents they submit. You give them those documents, they submit them to the court, and then you're looking at them and you're thinking, oh my God, all the dates. And Lambert knows, because I've worked with Lambert, if there's a date wrong in anything, I'm like picking it up and saying, sorry, you got to correct it. So, people don't pay attention to things like that. But in immigration, and I guess that's why we win the cases, because we're very, very detail oriented. We also go through several levels of checking. So we have a paralegal who checks, then we have the lawyer that checks, and then it comes to me. So I'm the third level of checks. So there's a lot of checks that the case usually goes through before it ever gets filed. So I've hit upon some of the changes. I haven't even touched a lot of the changes. You're welcome to listen to, I do Facebook Lives every Friday at 10. It usually lasts different periods of time, and it's usually a narrow topic. So for example, one thing I didn't touch on today was DACA. That was a huge victory. So these are people who came in before, I got to remember the date, 1997, and who were under the age of 16. And they have to meet several other criteria. And that just passed the Supreme Court on a 5-4 ruling, with Judge Roberts writing the main decision, who's the Supreme Court Justice and Chief. And that decision says you cannot eliminate DACA, because not only are you going to eliminate 660,000 people who have been benefiting from this since 2012, I think it is.
Yeah.
But you're also going to eliminate their children who were born here. And their children, now, so what's going to happen to these parents who have never known any other home, who've been here, some of them since they were 2 years old? So they're saying you can't take away DACA. Now, some of my African clients do have DACA. It's not so many, but it's more Central Americans and South Americans, but some of them do. And I have a presentation on that. I did another one, for example, on unemployment stimulus check. Usually clients ask me questions and I think, okay, I'm going to just do a topic on that because so many people are asking me questions about that. Or I did one on work permits. I did one on paroles. Paroles is a biggie. And we do a lot of paroles for people who come into the country. I did one on master calendars. What's a master calendar? So any topic that people suggest, or usually the topics that I think of that might be important, I do one every Friday. So, it varies according to what I feel is the need and what needs. So right now I felt this was the need. So I prepared a rather extensive PowerPoint, which I will probably use with a lot of law, which I'm not giving you, but I'm giving you the simple facts and the simple bottom lines on this, because it's very detailed and it's very extensive. And again, there's lots of things I probably didn't talk about in great detail. For example, I didn't mention that if you go to immigration and you had an RFE or NOID, do you know what an RFE is or NOID? An RFE is a request for evidence. So say you didn't file enough taxes, or you didn't file on a marriage case enough between March 1st, I think, and June 1st. It's either March 15 or when COVID started through June 1st. Then you automatically get an extension of 60 days. That's a positive. So it means that if you couldn't get the information because of COVID, you couldn't go to the courts and get your criminal record or certified criminal, you couldn't get this or that, you get an extra 60 days. That appeals also to 290B appeals. It does not apply to a BIA appeal. It does not apply to any kind of appeal. Just motions to reopen and RFEs noise. But at least it gives you a little bit more time. So that's a positive. So I could go into more detail about that. But there's so much happening. This is a time period where sometimes we're in a dearth of change. There's no change at all, sometimes for years. And then suddenly you have a year like this year, or most of the Trump years, frankly, where you have these huge sweeping changes who are then litigated, and there's all kinds of litigation going on right now. So then it goes back to here, or maybe it goes back and it's rescinded, and then it has to go back to the court. So it's hard to know what the law is from day to day because things are changing so very rapidly. There's not a day that goes by where I don't read through a whole list of different blogs from American immigration lawyers and all that stuff. And I'm also the chair to the EOIR, which is the Executive Office of Immigration Review. So that's all for the judges in Baltimore and Maryland in general. So I know all the information that comes out from there very quickly before anybody else, because I have to give it to the other 900 members in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So, I keep informed of what the changes are, what's happening. I also, as I said, do presentations on this. So unless a lawyer is keeping up with this, it's impossible to know from day to day what is happening because it is changing so rapidly, so quickly. So what I said today may not be the law in August completely. It may be slightly different. This is what is the rule that has passed. But the question is, will the comments and the lawsuits change it? So that's where we are with all this.
So Danielle, thank you again so much. I am very grateful for the time, and for the sake of the audience, Danielle's law firm, the name of it, if you want to Google, Beach-Oswald Immigration Law Associates. It is located on 888 17th Street Northwest, Suite 310, Washington, D.C. Phone number 202-331-3074. There
And
is
I want to
one of your
also put
clients
in
who
a
is
plug for
online.
Lambert, because Lambert does a lot of great work testifying as an expert. And that's how I've gotten to know him. For so many Cameroonians who I think we have always won. We've never lost a case.
No,
with
never.
you and
We've never.
Jude.
Yeah, we've never.
So, you know, and most times you don't even have to testify, but at least, you know, we go forward on these things. So it's, you know, everybody's trying to do their part. So thank you. Don't think that you know, you have a PhD and you're clever and you can do this yourself. It's not about being clever. It's about knowing the law. Unfortunately, today, that's what it is about.
There's one of your clients who is online, Mirabelle TV. She says, thank you very much, Miss Oswald, for this information. You have done a lot to help the Africans. Danielle is my lawyer, therefore I'm in safe hands. I have also sent 3 clients to her. So Danielle, just before we wrap this up, because I have another guest who is already in there, what are some of the mistakes that Africans make when they are filing for? What are the common mistakes that people should avoid?
Sloppiness is the biggest mistake. Just downright sloppiness, negligence, lack of good common sense. And by that, I mean, I went to Cameroon in 2016. Okay, I didn't see a single demonstration because that was before anything happened. I was so disappointed. I was like expecting to see all these problems, but I had my own problems because there were roadblocks everywhere. And fortunately, I had 2 Cameroonians who had organized the trip. One of which was was a U.S. citizen, and you know, it was that we had, you know, safe vehicle stay places and everything. But you know, I got to see the reason I agreed to go is because I thought, you know, I need to see firsthand how things are. And I think the biggest difference that you need to understand is things the way they're done in your country are not the way things are done here in the United States. So when you tell a story and you say, I escaped out of jail. Okay. That is difficult for an American to understand because you don't just escape out of jail very easily in the US. Okay?
Right.
So you need to say more than I escaped out of jail. And especially if you say, well, I jumped out of a truck where there was armed guards watching me and I was able to run even though I had been beaten. And that's not really believable, okay, to an American. So you have to understand, I understand that because I was sitting in a court and I wanted to watch an LGBT case. So I went in. Of course, they didn't like me because I'm the only white person. So I stick out like a sore thumb. Secondly, I have a camera and they know I'm wanting to use my camera. So they were going to take my camera away. And thirdly, there's no windows on the courtroom. Okay, so the courtroom is open. There's no windows. And there's 5 people sitting outside the courtroom on the floor. And they don't have handcuffs. They don't have anything, but they're going to be called in. And the guard walks away and he's not there. And I'm thinking, of course they can escape. Nobody's watching them. But in America, you don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. So you have to understand, you've got to explain it in a way that an American would understand. And most of these judges have never been to a third world country, much less to Africa. If they have been to Africa, it's to Kenya on a safari or Tanzania. They have not experienced the things you've experienced, so they don't understand it. One judge is in his decision, I saw something that said like, yeah, but BIA released 33 prisoners, so they're not clearly that persecuted. And I'm thinking he's killed hundreds, you know, but they don't focus on, you know. So you have to understand American, and most of them all understand that most of these judges are government officials. Most of them have a government background. The judges have been prosecutors. The new judge, Tracy Short, for all the immigration judges, and this is a big scandal. The deputy just resigned because he said, this guy cannot be impartial. He has been the prosecutor for ICE, and he is now the chief judge of all the immigration judges. So there is a bent that's like saying immigrants are bad. They're taking away our jobs. They are not telling the truth. They're coming here just to get employment. They're coming here just to get benefits. So you have to understand that is sort of the mindset of a lot of these very conservative people. And it's the mindset of a lot of these old school boys. And Cameron, you probably have that too, right? Older men, white men in this case here, who are very conservative, and that's how they think. So my philosophy is always think how the other side thinks, figure out what they want, and give them what they want to satisfy them.
You could not have a better word of advice than those words. Think how the other side thinks, give them what they have, what they want, and then you'll be able to work on that. Danielle, I want to say thank you. And for you to have offered your Saturday to work with us, I think that let's do more of this. I'm sure that there are tons of questions that people have. We were not able to go through all that. Bottom line, I think people should understand immigration is changing fast in the United States. Things are changing every day. And so people need to, your best bet, again, for me, the one lesson for today, look for a good attorney. Whether you are filing for a green card, you are filing for citizenship, whatever you are doing. And Danielle also does services for people while they're out in the country. If you have relatives in Cameroon that you want them to come over here because of for a visa or something, you can reach out to Danielle. It's not just for immigration, for asylum. She does.
And I also do other states. So I fly to Texas. I flew during this COVID 4 times to Texas for cases. So the courts were closed, and the courts are reopening July 13, but no masters. So if you have a master between now and August, it's not going to go forward. Only individuals, and only some individuals. But detained cases during COVID did go forward. So I had to do detained cases for people who are in jail, who weren't released on parole.
So again, Danielle, I want to thank you, and I say that when I get more questions, I'll reach out to you, and we can arrange this again so that we continue to educate the audience. And I say if people have particular issues, I know that there are people who have been in this country for a long time. They have never really cared about their asylum status, but now, given all that is happening, you could just be driving down the street and a broken tail. That is all it takes for your immigration status to be checked, and you are in for it. So if you have any questions, you have any need, immigration related, you can reach out to me. I've put Danielle's number, her office number is there. Reach out to us, and we'll be able to help you figure out what the way forward is. Danielle, do you have any last word?
Information is power. Thank you for providing this opportunity, because what you know, it will empower you to know what to do.
Thank you very much, Danielle.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We've been listening to Danielle Beach, an immigration attorney here in Washington, D.C. We have been talking about some changes that have been done with the immigration system in the United States. And we are going to now switch gears real fast. One of the things that Danielle said at the end of the program was, information is power. Information is power. I'm going to bring us right now a gentleman, Dr. Chu.
Yes, sir.
This is a scientist. Yes, and we're going to be talking about data. He is organizing a course that is beginning from July 15th, if I'm not wrong. July 15th, and it's going to last about 6 weeks. Dr. Chu, from immigration to education, and tell us about yourself, what you're about to offer to the public.
Well, Professor Lambert, I really appreciate this opportunity. And as Ms. Danielle mentioned, information is really power. Information is key to transforming ourselves. And actually, in the Bible, it says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." And I know this is not a biblical talk, but I'm just trying to correlate. But I'll talk a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Chu. I have a PhD from Georgia Tech, and I studied electrical engineering and software engineering with specialization in machine learning. So I have worked on a lot of companies. I've worked for Boeing. I've worked for NASA. I have worked for Ford. And right now I'm doing some part-time consulting for a school in Texas called Baylor University. And this idea has been spurring in my spirit on how to like I noticed throughout my work experiences that a lot of people are very unaware of this area of data science and machine learning, especially in the African community. I feel like the Indians, the Chinese, the Caucasians have really tapped into the full potential of this tool. And right now, where I see us in the African community, we're kind of trailing behind. With the machine learning, people can be self-employed. People can, create companies that will be, changing the world. Even in Africa with this kind of technology. And so I just thought, while I was, prayerfully discerning that, why not just maybe start a course that may open the eyes of people, and people may be more aware of what this machine learning is in the first place. So I'm offering this course. Starts this Wednesday. It's going to run for 8 weeks, and basically I'll be covering a lot of programming, and I'm going to be covering some fundamentals. Obviously, it's a very broad field and a very dense field, but I just trying to like spark an interest, and hopefully my goal is that at the end of this class, people will be able to get entry-level jobs, so that's my goal. But we're going to test that hypothesis, I guess, at some point.
So, Doc, I am amazed when I read your bio. At times I'm wondering why some of us came and were doing something related on while we studied history and the rest of the things, because electrical engineering, then so tell me, this data science.
Yes, sir.
We have been told that data is the new gold. Okay, if you want to invest in gold, the new gold you should be investing is in data. And I just heard you describe something about programming, and I know something about programming language, Tableau, Python, and all these kind of things. There are things that scare some of us who, run away from math, physics, and all these things in school. So what is this program all about? And again, you added another layer, machine learning. Robots are coming to take away our jobs. So why should we be studying anything related to this? I know there's two questions in one.
No, that's a very brilliant question. So basically, I would like to, before I even go ahead and explain all your questions, answer them, I'd like to explain give a lot of examples of what machine learning is. So, I'll give a very good example. Say we're right now live on Facebook, and what I'm sure a lot of people have witnessed the fact that you may be cruising, just checking whatever profiles on Facebook, and then you get a lot of sponsored ads. Let's say some people may be interested in sports, and somehow you may see a picture of Manchester United or Chelsea, or some people may be interested in music. And, you start wondering, how did these guys get all my information? And the honest matter of fact is this information was not really gotten directly. It was inferred using machine learning. So this is like a very practical example. So what happens in machine learning is that basically a software is trained based on historic data. a lot of data. So this is where data comes in. So there's like Facebook, obviously, is a masterpiece of data. It has master data sets. And so what happens is you have all this data coming in, and then based on your preferences, people, the language, the machine learning tool may be able to predict what is likely to be your preferences, right? What is your preferences for sports or for whatever else is out there, So that is like one example. And then there's another example like facial recognition. It works through machine learning. So basically, it's like a kind of an advanced tool, and so this is where programming comes in. So we have data. It may be images, it may be speech, it may even be bank information. So it's a very pervasive field. So it has, I know it sounds very, it may sound very high level, but the machine learning is so applicable in almost everything. And I think that my goal, or at least my vision, is that hopefully us Africans, especially here in the diaspora, can leverage this advantage of technology that we have, and hopefully be able to transform both our communities here and communities, I guess, in our respective African countries. So answer your question about the programming. The programming is very helpful because that is the science. That is where the science gets transferred into to infer from the data. So I know you mentioned about Tableau. Tableau is a visualization tool per se, but anyway, I'm sure I've said a lot and I've kind of wandered around.
So this is what my understanding of it is. So you have data.
Yes.
Okay. Then you use a certain language to be able to access the data, arrange that so that the machine can interpret that data and determine what preferences people have. I'm a Manchester United fan. Okay,
yes,
I might have clicked on the Manchester United thing online or on Facebook once.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, my page is continually being uploaded with information about Manchester United. And I'm wondering where that information came from. It's because I clicked on that. They have that data. The programming behind, there maybe an algorithm has come up and they have used that now to say that this is what this guy likes. So let's load his page with a lot of this Manchester United stuff.
Yes.
So, do I get that right?
Yeah. That's exactly correct. So basically, we have data set. Let me say data set. We have all kinds of data, which is used to train an algorithm, or what we call software. I don't want to use too many fancy words. We train a software, and that software can be anything. It can be Python, it can be C#, it can be whatever. And then that software is used to infer what are people's preferences. Look, for example, let's take a bank. I know a lot of companies now that give out mortgages. They use this machine learning to do that as well. So they collect a lot of data, historic data, and then they collect your data and kind of interpolate the data and say, okay, is this guy likely to pay his loan on time? Based on how this data matches with other people of his quote-unquote category.
So, Doc, tell us, you are now bringing a course for the rest of us. The general trend here is when one person discovers a field where people can make money, the microwave mentality. You put food in, 2 minutes is ready, and we eat and we go, isn't it? So first, I've said this over and over on this program, nursing used to be the get-go. Everybody, nursing. Now it is cybersecurity. Everybody is fighting to cybersecurity. Are you saying that we should shift now and get into data? What is it? How is this program going to benefit the community?
Well, I want to have a conversation. Because it may not be for everybody, right? That is the honest truth. It may some people may like it a lot, some people may not like it, but at least I want people to have a conversation, start thinking about it, because nobody has talked about it in a communal setting per se. So, and to see its hopefully potential in transforming our lives here. Like I know a lot of people, classmates from grad school, who have developed companies from this stuff, like real fancy companies, and it's a very, but no, I mean, nobody in the African community per se is very versed with it to the point that they can even start creating. And to be honest, the concept is kind of fairly basic. It's a basic concept. So what you do basically is you get a data, you get data set, and then you infer from that data set whatever you're trying to learn from it. And it's very ubiquitous per se, so like you can learn anything, so like I said, you can do facial recognition, you can do yeah, just so much, so my goal is that people should start thinking more about this. Maybe if one or two people get jobs from this may excite, people say, okay, I've never really thought about this, but how come, this guy came in here or her spent 8 weeks or however long we'll do it and able to get a job, and the honest matter of fact is this course, machine learning has been greatly mystified as well. So, and that has made people very, very apprehensive of approaching it. So it's been historically left for people that are very high-end scientists, like PhDs and masters and whatever. So, but I think the way the general trend is going, if you know exactly what you're trying to do, you should be able to do well, even if you're coming out from high school, and really have a focus, of course.
So, I mean, give me, what are the basic qualifications somebody needs in order to participate in your program?
To be honest, right now, I'm trying to get people that are ideally maybe like working, not working, but like have a readiness to learn, So, I mean, like I said, somebody with a high school diploma that maybe is really just trying to get his feet in the door somewhere, and has worked a lot, because this thing requires some level of discipline, so you can't just kind of walk in and just think you just pick everything up without some level of discipline, like everything else in life. So but right now, ideally my candidates are like young adults, who maybe are struggling to maybe figure out maybe what are their preferences, and they can try this, and it may excite them, because to be honest, it's a very interesting field. And the results of it may motivate, the money which is being paid may motivate whoever wants to venture into it, and even just the joy of the task.
Yeah, so what are some of the things I mean, I know we have gone through this, but give me a timeline within the 8 weeks. What is it somebody is going to learn, because I think very often people are afraid of getting into some of these things. We think that we need a lot of computers. We need to be computer savvy, know some programming language or whatever in order to engage. What are some of the things you'll be teaching? And
yeah, so, well, to be honest, my class is I think will be a blessing, because I'm teaching two things in one. So I'll be teaching both the component of machine learning and the Python. So these are two different things. So, but obviously, both they are very broad domains, and I would like to merge the two. Python is the language that is used to do the software programming, and machine learning is the tool itself. So the first 3 to 4 weeks, I'll be teaching fundamentals of Python, and then later on, I'll be using the Python as applied to machine learning.
Okay, so does that require one to be very technical in terms of knowing some math, some physics?
Yeah, it requires not physics for sure. It requires some very basic math skills, very basic. I don't think you need to know calculus or anything like that. You should be able to at least know like some algebra. Even though we're not going to do anything like algebra, but at least they're going to have some graphs that show visualizations and things like that. And so to have visualizations, you kind of need to have at least what the graph looks like. I mean, hopefully even people that have graduated high school should be able to do that. So I'm hoping people will be able to jump on it and hopefully benefit themselves.
So what kind of jobs do people have when somebody were to take this course? What kind of jobs would they be applying to, or what kind of, so that people, if they want to find out?
Well, that's a good question. The jobs are so many. I did a research last week, and I found out that, to be honest, machine learning jobs are the most populated, or the most compared to. I did an analysis. So we'll have machine learning, we'll have DBAs, database administrators, and cybersecurity analysts. They all are very good, but interestingly, data scientists, I did a LinkedIn search on number of data scientists jobs in the United States, and it came out to like 32,000 jobs for machine learning alone. And then for DBA, it came out like 16,000. Yeah, and then for cyber, it came out like 8,000. So you can see a factor of 2 for each of those jobs. So machine learning, like I said, it's a very ubiquitous field. It's very pervasive. So in addition, like my course is just to hopefully people that are coming into the course will kind of have an idea which background they want to use it for, because people can use this thing in biotechnology. They can use it for the.
So again, let's get to the maybe the money side.
Yes.
If people want to sign up, what do they need to do?
Well, I have Cash App, and PayPal, and right now I was charging $1,200 for the two months, which I think is very reasonable. But I've taken it down to $1,000 for, since I'm starting, and I'm trying to just bless somebody with some knowledge, and hopefully they can get a good job and remember me, or whoever else they want to remember. So right now my fees are $1,000 for 2 months, or for 2 weeks, and I offer these classes 2 days a week. So I'll be doing Wednesday evening 8 to 10 or so, and Saturday from 12 to 2.
Wednesday from 10, what time?
8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then Saturdays from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m.
So, Doc, what is the best way to reach you?
I have an email. I have email and phone number, of course. So my number is 609.
1 second. Let me pull that up.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So my number is 609 793.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay, sure.
609.
Yes, 793.
Yep.
3372.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you want to reach out to Dr. Chume. He's on his phone number. You can find that 609-793-3372. You also said you had an email. What is?
Yes, so my email is just my first name, CHU, and then a full stop, like dot, and then MEH, and then CHU, and then the numeric 1, not spelled, the numeric 1 at gmail.com.
So again, why these things are very important for us as a community, because knowledge is power.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing that becomes useless at any point.
Yes, sir.
I want to encourage many members of our community explore new things. One of the things I've learned with COVID is do not waste the crisis. You cannot afford to waste the crisis. COVID has provided us an opportunity to be able to learn new things. You have the time, you have the resources. This is an opportunity. Imagine enrolling in this course 8 weeks from Wednesday. Okay, 8 weeks from Wednesday. So by September 15th, doctor should be preparing you to start interviewing for positions, isn't it? Or if
Yes,
not,
sir.
just
Yes, sir.
having learned something new, you would
Yes.
be able to take that. So again,
Yes.
for the sake of the audience and for the sake of those who will be listening afterwards, this is an opportunity. At least find out, what does it take to become a data scientist in 8 weeks. Spend $1,000. I'm sure you can arrange for a payment plan with Dr. Chu.
Yes,
Okay.
we got payment plans.
He has his phone number again, 609-793-3372. And his email, chu.mehchu1@gmail.com. Please do everything, spread the message, share this out so that others can find out. Dr. Chu, so again, I mean, I'm just curious.
Yes.
Why don't you start up maybe a school just for this, for our people in Africa, so that they can learn just about this? I mean, why are you just limited to the United States? Or
No. So like I said, this is a vision that I just came up with. So I need to start at least with, I live here and I'm African, so the most logical place for me to start is to start around where I'm kind of more known, but and hopefully transition to something more global.
And charity always begins at home, from what you say. Charity begins at home.
Yes.
And I want to applaud you. Dr. Chume happens to be an ex-student of Sacred Heart College like myself. I've been fascinated by the fact that you are, most of the time I see you online, you are playing. What is this passion about music? About what is motivating you to get into music? Because you're always playing something.
Well, it's music actually is that's a good question. It keeps the mind very intelligent. I think people that play music, I mean, or even sing, it keeps the body and soul very very activated. I mean, like I don't know how else to put it. It's just it's a friend when nobody is there. I mean, and actually, if you look at, I've looked at a lot of biographies on great people on many fields, and I've noticed that on average, musicians are well loved, but they always have a story. They have a story which people connect with, and I have my own story too. I mean, it's not like totally bad story, it's just a story, and when I play music, it reminds me of where I'm coming from and where I'm going to. So, like, I mean, I'm sure even in Cameroon, we have artists like Evoalotin who experience a lot of tragedy in their lives, but somehow that music was their friend that kept, pushing them and propelling forward, and then even cases like, Michael Jackson, they had their own stories, and, you can see there's always that duality of, being very, being very shiny, but at the same time going through some thorns in their life, So that is kind of what music is for me.
So again, Doug, I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you are doing. And again, I just want to encourage people. Let us join, support our brother. I think that myself, I'm going to consider enrolling for that, just to find out what it is about, so that we can. This is something that the community needs. Because you mentioned something at the beginning. I would have loved for you to maybe touch on that more, which is the fact that a lot of Indians, a lot of Chinese, they get into these things because it's kind of a family thing, isn't it?
Yes.
One person gets into it and wants to bring in as many people as possible in order to grow that. Exactly. And I think that for us as a community, these are the things that we need to be promoting. You don't want to be the only data scientist or the only one in machine learning and all that. I don't think so. So again, I'd like for you to speak to that.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I mean, and this is probably going to address a lot of other side issues, but I think like you said, Indians, Chinese, the other races that are out there, they have a way of sharing information like we said, information is power, and there could be no better way to put it, because to be honest, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg is not rich because he had lots of money stored somewhere. It's just he had a very subtle idea, but he had the courage to pursue it, and that is the same thing. I'm hoping that if I may even introduce the idea and somebody may even run with it faster than I'm even running with it, because the person has seen how he can connect the dots between that knowledge and what people need. Because at the end of the day, what we need, the knowledge is for the people at the end of the day, so we don't go to school just for ourselves. We go to school so we can better ourselves and we can better the community. So talking about how we use comparing and contrasting ourselves with Indians and Chinese. So I think we have. I don't want to say we can do better, but I think people are just unaware. They're unaware. So like, people are more used to like the other jobs, like the security guards, the nursing, and the doctors, which is fine. I mean, those are but I think even in medicine, they need this. They even need this more prevalently. So if you have like radiologists, for example, my brother is a radiologist. So radiologists, they are in charge of like diagnosing cancer, or whatever, like tumors and all that. So they need images. They scan a database of images, and they have to analyze like where the cancer is coming from, or if there is cancer there in the first place. So machine learning can be used for this. It's a very basic example. You can, use some prior knowledge about how cancer or whatever or sickle cell manifests itself in an image of a cell, and then kind of try to induce or infer what you call it, where the data, where the disease is coming from. So if we have that mindset that, okay, we can use this knowledge to transfer, to really facilitate, it's more of a facilitator. It is not gonna like replace, but it will facilitate. So obviously we can write software, imaging processing software that will help to diagnose the thing, but it will not have the final say, but it will facilitate. So like right now, everything is going like telehealth, right? So and we may need this kind of knowledge set to do things like that, so, and like I said, my hope is that we can really use this we can leverage this opportunity, and hopefully, like I said, it is an experiment like everything else, and I just hope we can have a conversation and really be able to tap into its full potential.
Thank you very much, Doug, and I really appreciate. We're supposed to be on last Saturday, and
Yes.
got some technical problems again.
No,
We're on again today, and but I'm just glad we're able to do this.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll be able to come back to share your experience with us, and
Yes.
we're going to encourage people.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So
I was trying to say, I mean, I'll hopefully when the class is over, or we'll meet, or whenever it's convenient, I'll try to come, maybe share what is the eye opening that this course is creating in people, So because like I said, my goal is that by the middle of the class, people should start preparing their resumes, even though they don't know the whole thing yet, but they should have some new information that they can put on their resumes, and then start interviewing for jobs. Because at the end of the day, interviewing is a very, in terms of interview, communication. So in my class, I'm going to have, like, I know it sounds ambitious, but I would like in the last week or two, I'll have people present some projects which kind of demonstrate the understanding of the concepts, which they can put on their resume and apply for jobs. Because at the end of the day, what I've noticed in my short 5 years of corporate experience is communication is very big. It's very big, even in the scientific field, even more. So you must have a certain level of conviction and communication skill to elucidate your ideas.
Yeah, so again, apart from just the fact that people do not know, what are some of the reasons why people don't engage in this particular line of education? What is it that is making people not to discover some of these opportunities? I don't think it's just about people not knowing.
Well, to be honest, there are not a lot of people that are into IT, you know, and 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 people are not into IT as much like they could be, because maybe the bell hasn't been rung enough. It's like somebody has to ring the bell somehow. Somebody has to ring the bell about technology. About the impact of machine learning on on everything, on life in general. Because, like I said, it's so pervasive. You use machine learning in, like I mentioned, radiology. You use it, face detection, Facebook. I talked about the Facebook, bank loans, so everything. So it's a very pervasive technology. I would even dare say a paradigm shift. These things had always existed, but because of the profusion of data, the people have seen the impact of this, and software has become more available too. We have a lot of like free software out there to do all this machine learning and things. Like Python. I'll be teaching the course with Python. Python is free and is open source, what they call open source. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Any last word before we go?
Yeah, I do have a last word. So my course is starting next week, and like we hammered earlier that information is power, and not only power to enhance ourselves, but power to change others, change our environments, and be autonomous. And my hope is that by introducing this class, we can have a whole kind of even a movement where people are talking about this a lot more. Even in like I have a friend for example, talking about soccer. He designed an app that will kind of like just stream scores, and it may not use machine learning as such, but technology has that power to be an to invite you or everybody to be autonomous. So I'm just hoping that once we introduce this machine learning, people will see its value for what it is, and even for more than what it is. And my class starts on Wednesday, and we'll have the class 2 days a week. It's $1,000. I mean, it's all really a gift to the community, and I hope that people will be able to sign up. And there's always room for payment plans, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here, Prof. Lambert, and it's just it's always great to see Senior Michelle and Michelle's carrying the blazing torch all over the place.
Yeah, and I really want to appreciate the fact of you wanting to impact, that change in the community. It's like traditionally, I mean, in African communities, when you go to the forest and you are able to bring home a game, you don't take it and keep it for yourself. You take it that is meant for the community, and that you are able to do this. And I can tell you that, man, $1,000 to be able to learn this in 8 weeks. Just Google it and see how much this thing costs elsewhere, and you'll be able to see that this is a gift to the community.
Yes,
and I really appreciate that. I'm going to put this up again so that people can see. Just to say, this is an 8 weeks course on data science and machine learning by Dr. Chume. The class begins on Wednesday, July 15th. And let people take advantage. Go and see it. Fundamental principle. Do not let others tell you about it. Go discover it yourself. You have heard that there's something beginning. The doctor is willing to take a payment plan, work it out with him, learn it. 8 weeks, and you are out of it. And then let's see what that change comes. It's one person at a time.
Yes,
and my friend Dr. Nicholas Starr, who also runs a class in cybersecurity. He too is I think he's in DBA and all these other IT things. He's saying, "Congrats, Dr. Chume. We are so proud of you." You know, and I encourage you, Doc. I'll maybe in 2 weeks I'd like to touch base with you so that
sure.
you can come back. Just tell us how the class is going.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
can
sure.
encourage more people too.
Sure.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the course of for you listening today. It has been, we're getting to the second hour. We started off with immigration and we are ending up with education. And we want to thank Danielle Beach, who was here this afternoon, to explain to us the changes that are currently going on with the immigration system in the United States. And we transitioned to Dr. Chu, who you do not need an immigration status in order to study this course. You can study it from anywhere you are.
Exactly.
And you can use it. And that's the good thing, because it's machine learning. You can use it wherever, isn't it? So we want to make sure that all of us at the end of time will be able to say thank you to each other for having created the opportunity. Again, this is a weekly show, COVID and Africa. Today we dealt with immigration and machine learning. Next week will be another opportunity. Thank you all and have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.